أيها أزكى طعاما فليأتكم برزق منه وليتلطف ولا يشعرن بكم أحدا. أيها أزكى طعاما يظهروا عليكم يرجموكم أو يعيدوكم في ولن تفلحوا إذا أبدا. وكذلك أعثرنا عليهم ليعلموا أن وعد الله حق وأن الساعة لا ريب فيها، إذ يتنازعون بينهم أمرهم فقالوا ابنوا عليهم بنيانا ربهم أعلم بهم. قال الذين غلبوا على أمرهم لنتخذن عليهم مسجدا. سيقولون ثلاثة رابعهم كلبهم ويقولون خمسة سادسهم كلبهم رجما بالغيب ويقولون سبعة وثامنهم كلبهم قل ربي أعلم بعدتهم ما يعلمهم إلا قليل فلا تمار فيهم إلا مراء ظاهرا ولا تستفت فيهم منهم أحدا ولا تقولن لشيء إني فاعل ذلك غدا إلا أن يشاء الله. واذكر ربك إذا نسيت وقل عسى أن يهديني ربي لأقرب من هذا رشدا. ولبثوا في كهفهم 300 سنين وازدادوا 9. قل الله أعلم بما لبثوا له غيب السماوات والأرض أبصر به وأسمع ما لهم من دونه من ولي ولا يشرك في حكمه أحدا. واتل ما أوحي إليك من كتاب ربك لا مبدل لكلماته ولن تجد من دونه ملتحدا. واصبر نفسك مع الذين يدعون ربهم بالغداة والعشي يريدون وجهه ولا تعد عيناك عنهم تريد زينة الحياة الدنيا ولا تطع من أغفلنا قلبه عن ذكرنا واتبع هواه وكان أمره فرطا. وقل الحق من ربكم فمن شاء فليؤمن ومن شاء فليكفر إنا أعتدنا للظالمين نارا أحاط بهم سرادقها وإن يستغيثوا يغاثوا بماء كالمهل يشوي الوجوه بئس الشراب وساءت مرتفقا. إن الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات إنا لا نضيع أجر من أحسن عملا. أولئك لهم جنات عدن تجري من تحتهم الأنهار يحلون فيها من أساور من ذهب ويلبسون ثيابا خضرا من سندس واستبرق متكئين فيها على الأرائك نعم الثواب وحسنت مرتفقا. لهم مثل الرجلين جعلنا لأحدهما جنتين من أعناب وحففناهما بنخل وجعلنا بينهما زرعا.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام.
الحمد لله. Everything's good, mashallah.
عليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. وعليكم السلام. Maliki salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
I think we're going out live now. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Assalamu
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam. I want to greet everybody. Hope everybody's doing well, mashallah. We're going to get started in just 1 minute. We're still seeing the situation. Inshallah. All right. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. Ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Maliki yawmiddin. إياك نعبد ونستعين صراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا من سيئات أعمالنا من يضلل الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. So inshallah, we're going to get started in a moment. Sheikh Amin is not able to join us on class today. He's already just not feeling 100%. He's a little fatigued. So he asked us to fill in, mashallah. So inshallah, I hope everybody's well. I know everybody's getting ready for the month of Ramadan to start. Inshallah, making the last minute preparations and everything, as if we have a well-loved expected guest approaching, inshallah. Every year we always have issues with the when exactly does the month of Ramadan start. We have some people that do a global sighting, and the ruling on that is basically any reliable person anywhere in the world that has confirmed the sighting would mean that the month of Ramadan has started. Some people, they like to make controversies and issues over it. But some other people, they go by a local sighting, which means that if somebody in their area, their local area, and by local, we don't necessarily mean your exact town. It could be your town, it could be an adjoining town, or somebody in your area, somebody in your state, your city, the city next to you, somebody in the same country as you're in, or the same region that you're in, a local sighting. So those are two generally the basic ways that people go by, whether it started or not. A lot of people with connections overseas, they might wait for verification from their sheikhs or their imams in other countries to see when they've started so they can start together. Are you able to hear me clearly? I just want to make sure I'm being heard.
Yes, we can hear you clearly.
Okay, good. Alhamdulillah. But the issue is, some people complain that the Muslims are never united, and a sign of that lack of unity is, some of the arguments that people get into over whether, not necessarily arguments, but differences people get into over whether the month of Ramadan has started or not. I often say that it's easy for people to unify if everybody had the same approach or the same methodology of deciding whether something starts. But a real sign of people having a unified understanding or unity in their community is when there's differences. and how they handle those differences. So let's not make the sighting of the moon an issue of argumentation or something that you make takfir about and stuff, but just something that we coexist with and that we're able to continue. Alhamdulillah, if you start on Monday and somebody else starts another day, alhamdulillah, you're both fasting. May Allah will reward both people based on their intentions and their methodologies and their approach to the issue, inshallah. So, you know, but these days and times, there's so much going on. You know, even our approach to Ramadan is a little different nowadays because, you know, our situations with the era of COVID and, you know, what people are calling the new normal. And, you know, some masjids are open, some are partially open, some are still closed, depending on your decisions on the individual masjid. Some people are doing social distancing, some people aren't. You Taraweeh, some people are doing it, some people aren't, you know. My approach is, alhamdulillah, protect yourself in whatever your situation is. Don't be an extreme person in trying to fulfill, you know, your duties of Islam. It doesn't mean you have to be extreme about it. What was good for you in one situation pre-COVID might not be good for you in a post-COVID situation. You know, there's a lot of people who have pre-existing conditions and need to be concerned, you know, about their health, not just their health, but there might be somebody with a pre-existing condition in your own family or somebody that you are close to and you come in contact with. So by you exposing yourself to, you know, possible situations where you could contract the COVID, you know, and coronavirus and bring it home or bring it to them, that might be something that's irresponsible for you in your case. Another person might not be exposed in that way, and they aren't so much worried about, you know, going to a crowded masjid in this area or going to a place where they come in close contact with other people. But I think the moderate path or the best path for many people is to be cautious, to be very cautious, and to you know, consult with other people, consult with your families, see what their situation is. You know, there's many things that are associated with Ramadan that are very, very beautiful in terms of, you know, extending the love and the community. But you don't want to try to do those things and expose yourself or other people to risk. So where, you know, making iftar in a masjid with, you know, so a lot of people might be good in one situation, it might not be the best thing in other situations. So, you know, you might have to make some adaptations. Alhamdulillah, Islam in itself is very flexible in many situations. I mean, there are the things that are at the foundation, and then there's some other things that are recommendations, and some things that you just shouldn't do because it might mess you up totally. But in terms of gathering in groups, the fast of Ramadan itself is in many ways a personal thing, because the one who fasts, the people next to you don't really know who's fasting and who's not fasting. That's something that's between you and Allah Ta'ala. You know, there's a funny story, well, not really funny, but a story of somebody who didn't fast the month of Ramadan, but he loved the sahur. So he would take part in the sahur every day, but he never fasted. You know, he just liked the sahur. He liked the iftar. And, you know, the people around you, they don't know, except the ones that are close to you, your family might know. But I say that to say that, you know, fasting is something very personal. So, you know, if you're fulfilling the duties of fasting, it's not necessarily a show that you're putting on for other people. You know, you're just doing it for the sake of Allah, because it's one of the fundamental things that the Muslims do. So the other things in terms of, gathering for the iftars and standing for Taraweeh, those are excellent things to do. However, you might be able to do them in your homes instead of going to the masjid, or in other situations where it's less crowded and things of that nature. So I say that to say that may Allah Ta'ala, help us all to, inshallah, to see the month of Ramadan, and that we able to go through it successfully, and that He unifies the hearts of the Muslims and all the Muslims who are fasting, inshallah Ta'ala. So we're going to start a little bit with where I believe we left off in terms of the fiqh, and we'd like to open up by saying a prayer for our Sheikh Amin Abdul. May Allah reward him for his efforts and for his leadership and for the guidance he has given us. And we'd like to say Fatiha for the soul of Dr. Suleiman Dunya and Sheikh Amin Dardir and Imam Malik, and on the Silsila, including Nafi and Abdullah ibn Umar, to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's the golden chain that we have back to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So we say Al-Fatiha. Bismillah. Amin. So we're going to start in the section, I believe this is where we left off. It's called Missing Previous Prayers. And the author says, the section says what you should do after missing previous prayers. So this is a way that we should make up our previous prayers. If you postpone the prayers because of insanity, because of blood, of childbirth, during the menses, or if you're, unconscious due to a coma, or if you're infidel and, you've recently just entered Islam. So if you postpone the prayers and these situations remain with you until the end of the proper time of the prayer, you are not responsible for that prayer. So if you're postponing your prayer because of insanity or the issuance of blood during childbirth or menses or coma, if you're unconscious due to coma, or due to infidelity, and this situation remains until the end of the proper time of the prayer, you are not responsible for this prayer. So this is like a continuation of some of the issues that we've been addressing recently over the past couple of weeks, having to do with the missing prayers, making up prayers, how to make it up, the actual prayer time, and things of that nature. One of the cases they give as an example is if one is an infidel, his prayers are not accepted by Allah. So if he converts to Islam, he is responsible for all the prayers that he is obliged to do after this point. The previous prayers that he missed before converting to Islam, Allah will not hold him accountable for them. Another one is when you have no water or dust and the time of prayer passes, Allah will not hold you responsible for that prayer. And by not holding you responsible, we're saying that you don't have to make that one up. Also, in terms of not having any water or dust, Sheikh Amin also gave us the ability to use from another method, from the Shafi method, on the issue of Tayammun and using dust, where the Maliki say that you need to see the dust or the dirt that you're making the Tayammun on. The Shafis, they say that you don't necessarily have to see the dust, that it is known that dust is everywhere, and that even if you can't see it, there's like a thin layer of dust on everything. So they say that you can make Tayammun on things and you don't necessarily see the dust. So if you are in that situation and there's no water and there's no dust, visible dust, Sheikh Amin said that you do have the flexibility of stepping outside of the method and taking a decision from another method, for instance, the Shafi method, and making tayammum on just anything that you see as a dispensation. These following things we're about to discuss are not considered excuses. So whereas childbirth, blood during childbirth, and menses, going into coma, or infidelity are excuses, these following things are not excuses. If for these reasons you miss the prayer, you are still responsible for it. Sleeping. So if you sleep through the time of prayer, or forgetting, if you just forget, and you remember later. Laziness, not doing the prayer purposely due to laziness, or mistakes in the prayer, which you discover later that invalidates your prayer and makes you responsible for it once you haven't known that you made those mistakes. These four things were called by Dr. Suleiman Dunya false excuses. They're not necessarily explained in the book that way, but that is something that Dr. Dunya explained to Sheikh Amin. And these differentiate these excuses from the excuses that are actually valid. Also, when you have doubt, whether you missed a prayer or not, you are ordered to do this prayer. So doubt, meaning that, if you think later on in the day, did I make that prayer or did I not make that prayer? If you doubt it, you should make it up, inshallah. If you have doubt about the validity of prayer, you have to do it again. You have to do the prayer even if you missed the prayer in that state of doubt. You should do the prayer as you missed it. That's a general rule in these issues, is that when you're making up the prayer, you make it up as you missed it. So if you missed a previous prayer and you're in a particular situation and you're trying to make it up and you're in a different situation, you should make it as if you're in the situation that you were in when you missed the prayer. For instance, if you were traveling, all right, and we know that we have a dispensation that allows us to make certain prayers, to shorten certain prayers. For instance, Dhuhr or Asr or Isha, these are normally 4 rakat prayers. So if you're a resident, you should make them as 4 rakats. However, if you're a traveler, you have the dispensation to, to make them with 2 rakats as a traveler. So if you miss the prayer as a traveler and you have to make it up and you've returned home, or you're now a resident and you're in a situation where those prayers would normally be 4 rakats, you make it up as you have missed it, which means that as you make it up, you're making up as a 2 rakat prayer, even though you are home and making up as a resident. So for instance, if you missed the Dhuhr prayer and the Asr prayer, but you've returned home and you're making the Maghrib prayer, you would still make your prayers as you've missed them. So whatever state you missed it in, you would make it up with that in that situation. And the same thing would be the other way around. If you were resident when you missed it and you were supposed to have made the 4 rakat prayer, and now you're traveling and you're making 2 rakat prayers as a dispensation, you would make up the prayer as a 4 rakat prayer and not as a 2 rakat prayer as a traveler. So basically the rule is that you make up the prayers as you missed them. The example they give is, suppose that yesterday you missed the Dhuhr prayer by one of the false excuses. And today you are traveling, and by the false excuses, we mean that, you have to make up the prayer. So, and today you are traveling. Remember that you did not pray Dhuhr yesterday when you are traveling. Zuhr is made 2 rakat, but yesterday you were not traveling. You were in your town, and Zuhr should have been made by 4 rakat. What should you do? If you missed the Zuhr of yesterday, and today you were traveling, and you are out of your town, you must pray it by 4 rakat. You must pray the 4 rakat, even if you are not traveling. If you missed Zuhr while you were traveling, and now you're in town, you should pray it by 2 rakat. You do the prayer the same as you missed it. That's to basically just, I guess, to reinforce what I just said. If you missed the Maghrib prayer of yesterday, and you will do it in Zuhr's time, you should say the first 2 rakat of Maghrib aloud. So in this situation, they're saying to make the prayer as you missed it. So if you missed a prayer where you should be reciting audibly, you should make it up audibly, even though if you're in a time frame where silent prayers are due. So you should say the first 2 rakat of Maghrib aloud as you missed them. An exception is if you missed a fard of the prayer, a rukn of the prayer, and you were sick and not able to stand. Your duty at that time was to sit because of your illness. You want to do the rukn, the fard, and you are now well. Should you stand or sit? That's the question. If you missed the prayer where you were intending to sit down or take the dispensation for due to health or illness, and now you're feeling healthy and you're able to stand, should you make it up as you missed it in this case? In this case, no, you should not. You should stand. This is an exception in what belongs due to your health. You should do the prayer according to your ability at that time. So as an exception to the rule where we're saying you should make it up as you miss it, if you are taking dispensations because of your health, you should make it according to your ability in the situation that you're making up in. The author says, when you miss the prayer and it became overdue, you have to do it immediately, as soon as possible. Whether you are traveling or not, sick or not, you should not delay the prayer any longer, even if the prayer is done during prohibited times. All right, so let's open it up for a section. What do we mean by prohibited times? Does anybody know what the author is intending at this point by prohibited times? You can either type it in the chat or see. Isaac, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
All right. I'm sorry, I just want to make sure you're there. If you see anything in the chat, or if you see people raising their hands for the answer, if you could just pull somebody. So the question is, what does the author mean by prohibited times? I want to repeat it. So you should not delay the prayer any longer, even if the prayer is done during the prohibited times. What is meant by the prohibited times?
Sidi Abdullah, I'm gonna not answer any of the questions, okay? Besides that, I'm not going to answer any of the questions.
We got you on deck, though, bro. We got you on deck.
All right.
What about the rest of y'all? Put your hand up or type it in the chat. I'm going to read it one more time, and if nobody gets it, we go to Hajj Dawood, inshallah.
Our brother Frank has his hand up.
Go ahead, Frank. Assalamu alaikum, Frank.
Alaikum salam. I think you're talking about the obligatory time.
No, we're not. We're talking about obligatory prayers and having missed them. And we're also talking, so you have partially have it correct, but not the specifics of this case. What we're talking about here is the importance of making up missed prayers. And the importance of missed prayers is so important that even during a prohibited time, you should still make up these missed prayers. There are times in the day when prayer is prohibited. And the question is, what does the author mean by prohibited times?
I understand now. So you're talking about when the sun, after the sun rises and after the sun sets, those would be 2 prohibited times.
You got it. Thank you, Brother Frank. Alhamdulillah. I'm sure
Thank
Sheikh Amin would be happy, very happy that you paid attention during the classes. Alhamdulillah. So yes, basically when the sun touches the horizon, I think I saw a couple other people that had typed it in also. Alhamdulillah. So when the sun touches the horizon, that is known as a prohibited time. The hadith refers to the sun passing through the horns of shaitan. So, for instance, during the subh prayer, once you see the sun emerge past the horizon, or you could actually see it touching the horizon, that would be a time where prayer is prohibited. Also, on the time of Maghrib, between Asr heading into Maghrib, if the sun touches the horizon, it's a prohibited time for prayer, and you should be not making prayers. However, what the author is saying is even during those prohibited times, you're able to make up a missed fard prayer. You should not delay the prayer any longer, even if the prayer is done during the prohibited times. So the importance of making up prayers, or the importance of prayer itself in general, is that it overshoots even the prohibited times of prayer. Nothing prevents you from doing a fard prayer that you missed. It becomes the most important thing that you could do. An exception to this is the prayer which you have any doubt about. So an exception would be if you're making up a fard prayer that you're making up because you have doubt whether you missed it or not, that would not be strong enough to make it up in the prohibited time. You do not do this kind of prayer at this time because it looks like a nafil. The way you're making it up could also be considered a nafil. The possibility is that you did the prayer and doing it again would be a nafil. And nafil prayers are not made during these prohibited times. The only prayers that you can make during the prohibited times where the sun is touching the horizon would be fard prayers. So if you have a doubt that you made a prayer or not, and you'd like to make it up, and then you entered into the haram time or the prohibited time for prayer, you should wait until that time passes to make that one up. A nafil prayer is haram during the time when the sun is on the horizon. However, you must do this prayer once that time period passes. The author says you have to do the previous missed prayers immediately. However, he will give us some excuses, after which you must spend all your time in doing these previous prayers. An excuse is the necessary time that you need for food and drink. Islam will not say to us, don't eat, go and do the previous prayers. If you do not eat what is necessary, you will not be able to make your prayers. So here they're saying that, yes, the overriding thing to do is to make up your previous prayers, but there are some situations where it's better not to make it immediately. You still have to make it up, but not immediately. One of those cases is where you're extremely hungry. We're not talking about you're just craving food or you want to eat. We're talking about if you're extremely hungry to the point of starvation, or to the point where your hunger will really prevent you from being able to perform the prayer correctly, where you're so weak that you're not able to stand for prayer, or you might not be able to focus on your prayers and making mistakes. It's better at that time to eat enough food to, what they say is straighten out your back, or straighten out your thinking so that you can make the prayer. So we're not talking about, just relaxing and having a good meal. We're talking about eating enough so that you can perform the prayer. If you do, the author continues, if you do not eat what is necessary, you will not be able to do your prayers. Also, the time that you need for sleeping is another excuse. However, you should not take this in its wide meaning. The sleeping only is that which is necessary. So if you're exhausted, we're not talking tired, we're not talking lazy, we're talking about if you're exhausted. to the point where you're dozing off in the middle of your sentences, or not able to focus, and you're falling asleep. Because sometimes the person sleeps for pleasure, but by necessary we mean the sleep that you need for your health. If you do not get this sleep, you will become ill. But more sleep than this is not excused. Now, other excuses are also the need to go to the bathroom, and then also he lists here working, the need to earn money to feed your family. So if you're in a situation where it could affect your income, your ability to support your family or your obligations, you do have an excuse, but that's not a general thing. That's like an extreme situation. So those are all like excuses for not making up missed prayers immediately. The overriding rule is that your missed prayers should be made up in haste, quickly, as soon as possible, as soon as you remember, as soon as your situation changes and you're able to make up a missed prayer, you should. So some of the excuses they list for that, again, are if you are in need of food or drink, extremely hungry or thirsty, if you need to sleep, to the point where you're dozing off and not able to continue, you should sleep if it's bad for your health. If you're in a situation where you need to use the bathroom or relieve yourself, something that would prevent you from being able to fulfill the prayer correctly, or even if you have to work, or you have to do something to fulfill the needs of your family, to make money, to earn income, that's listed also as a valid excuse for continuing to delay a missed prayer, even though your situation has changed. In general, you should make your prayers up immediately, your missed prayers immediately. You should not make nafil when you owe obligatory prayers. So if you've missed a previous fard prayer and you're about to make another fard prayer, but you know you owe this other one, it's more important for you to make up the missed prayer than to make extra fard nafil prayers at that time. And then even in that case, there are exceptions because not all nafil prayers are the same. So for instance, the Shaf prayer or the Witr prayer or the Eid prayer or the Fajr prayer. Well, here the Malikis, they call the Ragiba, the 2 rakats before Subh that are made quickly. Those are exceptions to not making a nafil prayer. You should make those nafil prayers also. Even if you do previous old prayers, an exception would be the Shafar prayer, the Witr prayer, the Eid prayer, or what's here listed as the Fajr prayer, the Ragiba prayer. Little test question. We're going to open it up again. Regarding what the Malikis call the Fajr prayer, 2 things. What the Malikis normally call the Fajr prayer, and also what's specific about the Ragiba prayer, this Fajr prayer that they mentioned. What is different with this nafil prayer compared to other ones? I think I see Brother Hassan. He raised his hand first. If you go unmute Hassan and you can give us the answer.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alhamdulillah. The prayer that some people call Fajr, the Malikis call it the soup prayer.
Alhamdulillah.
And the thing about the Ragiba prayer is that it's a very quick prayer, and it's done without an additional surah after we pray. After when we say the Fatiha, we just say the Fatiha, and it's done very quickly.
Alhamdulillah, that's it. And some of that is explained that this is an early prayer, and that you should be praying your sub prayer in the masjid, and it's recommended that you pray the what's listed here as the Fajr or the Ragiba prayer at home, and that you do it quickly with the intention of making it to the sub prayer in the masjid. and that that prayer is done quickly and without a second recitation. So you pray the Fatiha and then you continue on without the second recitation. Alhamdulillah. Thank you, Brother Hassan. Also, we're going to continue. Also, you are permitted to make nafil when you owe a previous obligatory prayer, when you must work to earn money for your family to eat. So if you're in a situation where you owe a previous prayer and you can make a nafil prayer, if you're but you're not able to make the full fard prayer, you can make the nafil prayer if that's the situation you're in, an extreme situation where you have to earn money to feed your family. That's another exception to the rule. The author continues, when you remember that you did not pray Zuhr or Maghrib during the time of Asr or Isha, respectively. So if you did not pray Zuhr or Maghrib during the time of Asr or Isha, respectively, the Asr and Isha are canceled because Zuhr and Asr share in times, and Maghrib and Isha share in time. It is necessary for Zuhr to be done before Asr and Maghrib to be done before Isha, so long as they are done in their proper time. If you make Zuhr and Asr of last month, you can make Asr first and Zuhr second, and your prayer will be valid, but there will be some type of sin involved because of the way you delayed your prayers. So we're talking about the fact that certain prayers share in times. So sub prayer and the Maghrib prayer, the sub prayer stands alone. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. All right, we heard a little background noise. If you could mute your phone, inshallah. If you make Zuhr and Asr, like Zuhr and Asr share in time, and then Maghrib and Isha share in time also. And so by sharing in time, we're saying that the recommended time and the obligatory time, there's an overlap there. So if you're making up your prayers for Zuhr and the time of Asr comes in, it's a different situation than making it up because they share a time. You're still making it up in the recommended time. And the same thing for Maghrib and Isha. If you're in Isha, the actual time for Maghrib has not run out. So technically, you're still in the right time for making that prayer. However, again, there will be some type of punishment involved in delaying your prayers and how you make them. But the overall rule is you should make them in order. If there's nothing really preventing you from making them in order, you should make them up in order, even the ones that you share. So that, let's say that you owe a previous prayer and the time for the next prayer is in, even though they're shared times, if you can go to the side and make that previous prayer and join the congregation, you should do it that way. However, if the congregation and there's no time going on, you could join and then make it up later. Brother Hassan, you have a question? I hope I'm able to answer it.
Inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Now, this question deals with the time of prayer and the excuse for the prayer, for missing the prayer. For example, I work a graveyard shift, the 12 to 8 shift, and when I get home around 10 or so, I usually go to sleep. I know that I'm going to sleep, and am I sinful if I know that I'm going to sleep and it's a possibility that I may sleep past Salatul Zuhr into the time of Salatul Asr, and when I wake up, it's time the time of Asr prayer is in. However, what I've been doing, if that occurs, I make my Zohar and then I make my Asr.
In the time of Asr.
And it's the time of Asr, but I've slept through Zohar. All right. Am I sinful? My question is this, Sheikh. Am I sinful because I don't set an alarm to wake me up before the Zohar prayer is gone into the Asr prayer?
And technically, you would not, because you have a valid excuse of sleeping. Setting the alarm or not is not necessarily a requirement. You can do that if you feel that it would be best for you, but it's not necessarily a requirement. If you sleep and you're before the time of Asr comes in, and you're actually waking up still within the time of Dhuhr. You haven't missed the time of Dhuhr. When you make up the Dhuhr, you're not making it up as somebody who missed Dhuhr.
Mm-hmm.
You're making it but still within its time frame, not the best time, but within the obligatory time. You're still within the obligatory time for Dhuhr.
Alhamdulillah.
So I mean, we could verify that with Sheikh Amin, but my understanding of it, and I've also been in that similar situation often, that you do not incur any punishment in that case. That sleeping is a valid excuse. You don't necessarily have to set your alarm to pray it at the best time. However, if you can wake up during that time, that would be best, of course. But if you sleep past the best time for the Dhuhr Salat in this case, and into the obligatory, which is considered the obligatory time, you're still within the obligatory time to make it if that's like the first thing you're doing. We're not talking about being in the obligatory time, waking up for Asr, and start watching TV, and relaxing or doing other things. Once you wake up, you should perform that prayer as soon as possible, and not be leisurely about making it. Inshallah.
Alhamdulillah. Someone equated, I was talking to a family member, and I told a family member that that sometimes I'll sleep through Salat al-Asr and I'll make the prayer when I get up. And he said, "Oh, you can't do that because you're sinful, because you went to sleep with the intention of missing that prayer. You should set your alarm." So I just wanted clarification, a little bit more clarification, because he even he made an analogy to a person that commits a premeditated crime. He said you already had the intention that you were going to sleep past that the prayer, and by having that intention, it puts you in a sinful state.
Yeah, I understand what he's saying. Technically, I don't think you went to sleep making an intention that you would miss the prayer.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that was your intention to miss the prayer. Your intention was to go to sleep, because you need to sleep, and the prayer time hasn't entered. So if you do have the possibility to set an alarm and catch the prayer before the time passes, I would say that would be best. However, in this situation, if you had woken up for whatever reason, a loud noise or something, or Allah Ta'ala just made you get up and catch the prayer, would you make it within its good time, or would you go back to sleep, intentionally at that point? Let's say you went to sleep before Dhuhr came in. You have like 3 hours before, 4 hours before you miss the Dhuhr prayer, and you wake up before the Dhuhr is out. The thing to do would be get up and make the prayer. Was your intention to go to sleep to miss the prayer, or was your intention to go to sleep because you needed to sleep? You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
So, I mean, the brother is saying that you have the intention of missing the prayer, but I don't think that in that situation, that was really your intention to miss the prayer. Your intention was to get some sleep because you needed to sleep. But we could run that one by Sheikh Amin for his specifics on that decision. on that specific case. But that's the way I see it.
Alhamdulillah. Shukran.
Afwan. I think we have another question. Abdullah Tawheed Muhammad. Brother Abdullah Tawheed, if you'd like to unmute your phone.
Alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Just a quick reminder, inshallah. After Salatu Isha, how do I now determine when Tawari is? Yes, I know during the month of Ramadan, but now Ramadan is over with. I'm not passing it, but I'm just asking for time frame, inshallah. You understand my question?
When to perform Taraweeh?
No, how do we determine that? Like, what's the time frame for a Tawari prayer?
It's similar to what you would normally do for Tahajjud, you know. However, many people are doing the Taraweeh prayers in congregation. There's differences of opinion on the Taraweeh prayer, whether it needs to be done in congregation in the masjid or not. There's a famous hadith from Umar radiallahu anhu, Umar ibn al-Khattab, where the people started to do it in congregation, and he called it an excellent bid'ah. So for people who don't understand that there's different types of bid'ah, that's often used. That hadith is often used as an example of that. There's different types of bid'ah. There's blameworthy bid'ah and there's praiseworthy bid'ah. So the performing the Taraweeh in congregation in the masjid was considered by the Khalifa Umar ibn al-Khattab as a praiseworthy bid'ah. So if you're praying Taraweeh prayer in a congregation, of course you would do it with the congregation. Alhamdulillah. As far as the time, it would be after Isha. After Isha. After people have performed Isha, and also, what they've done in terms of Sunnah prayers affiliated with Isha. So anytime after Isha, you can make the Taraweeh prayer. Did that answer your question, brother?
So yes. So I did make it all the way after. So that's the beginning. Is there a cutoff right before Salatu Ragiba or something like? Would be my cutoff or no? That's hard to say too.
Yeah, I would refer to Sheikh Amin, but like I said, most people are praying in congregation at the masjid. I think the preference would be to do it before, it gets too late, midnight. If you're doing it at home in congregation, you would be able to do it all through the night, like you would normally do tahajjud, because there's a very close connection between tahajjud in the regular times, and the Taraweeh prayer was considered Taraweeh in the month of Ramadan, inshallah. So yes, you have an extended period of time to do it at your home.
Shukran.
Afwan. All right, we're going to continue. I think I left off here. I lost my spot. Give me 1 second. Brother Isaac, if you could, you did it. Thank you, brother. Appreciate it. You lowered the hand. I appreciate it. It's a little distracting. If a person thinks or doubts or is sure that he missed 3 consecutive prayers without remembering which ones they were, he should pray 5 consecutive prayers beginning with Zuhr. This is an interesting case. So I'm going to repeat that. If a person thinks or doubts or is even sure that he missed 3 consecutive prayers without remembering which prayers he missed, he should pray 5 consecutive prayers beginning with Zuhr. And we're going to continue and explain why that is. When you begin with Zuhr, the following 2 prayers are Asr and Maghrib. But suppose that the first prayer missed was Asr. So the first prayer you missed was actually Asr. But we're recommended that you begin with Zuhr and you pray 5 consecutive prayers. You actually missed 3, but the recommendation is that you pray 5 because you're not too sure which 3 there are. So you start with Zuhr. Then the next 2 prayers, it says, you begin with Zuhr. The following 2 prayers are Asr and Maghrib. But suppose that the first prayer you missed was Asr, then the next 2 prayers would be Maghrib and Isha. Therefore, by doing 5 prayers consecutively, he will cover all possibilities for his case. So the case is you're not sure which prayers you missed. So as a way to ensure that you actually make up the ones you missed, they're saying do a little more than what you missed. In this case, since you're not sure where you should start with Zuhr and do 5 prayers, and that way you'll be sure because you'll cover all the prayers. By doing the 5 consecutively, he will cover all possibilities for his case. If you miss 4 prayers consecutively without knowing which ones they were, the same rule applies. You should pray 5 prayers from the day, for that day, beginning with Zuhr, and make all the prayers. While doing these consecutive prayers that you missed, approaching each supposition, you should not go back to repeat the prayer for each case. For example, if a person missed 3 consecutive prayers, he should begin with Zuhr, then he'll pray Asr and Maghrib. But suppose the first prayer that was missed was Asr. He then would have prayed Maghrib and Isha. However, because he prayed Asr and Maghrib in the first case, he is not in need of praying them again for the second case. But he is in need of doing the Isha prayer. So if he's making it up, thinking that he may or may not have missed it, and he later remembers that, well, he made it, and the one he missed was the previous one, he doesn't have to go back and do it again. He can continue. But he is in need of doing the Isha prayer. From this, we see that when the person does 5 consecutive prayers, he covers all of the cases, and he is not repeating prayers over and over again for each case. So that's the recommendation is, if you're not too sure about exactly which prayers you missed, if you missed 3 prayers, you should go back and make, you go back to Dhuhr and make those prayers, 5 consecutive prayers, just to cover all your bases so you're clear of that. If you know, think, or doubt that you missed 3 consecutive prayers, and you know that the first one you missed was a night prayer. So this was a little more specific. The other one, you didn't have any clue about which one you missed. But in this case, you know you did it. The one you missed was a night prayer. So you missed 3 consecutive prayers, and you know the first one you missed was a night prayer. You should do 4 prayers. The first prayer is Maghrib in this case, because that's when the night prayer begins. The next 2 prayers following are Isha and Subh. But suppose the first prayer he missed was Isha. Then the next 2 prayers are Subh and Zuhr. Therefore, he did 4 prayers covering all the possibilities that could arise. Let's not get too overly burdened with the specifics of these cases. The general understanding is the importance of making up missed prayers, that if there's doubt about which prayers you missed, you should overcompensate and make some extra prayers just to make sure that you're covering all the possibilities of what you have missed. So again, this whole section, has some details to it. But the overall thing that you should understand is how important is, first of all, make your prayers on time. Make your prayers on time, which also involves understanding what the prayer times are, what the good time, the obligatory time, and the overdue time for prayer is. And then if you do find yourself in a situation where you miss the prayers, it's a high priority. It's a high priority for making them miss prayers. And in this particular case, they're saying it's so important that if there's doubt, you should overcompensate just to make sure that you cover all your bases.
Ustad Abdullah.
Yes, brother.
Sidi Abu Yassin had a question.
Oh, okay. Bismillah, tafadal. Sidi Abu Yasin, if you're still there, if you could unmute your phone. We'll continue. If the brother wants to ask his question later, he can come back with it. Continues, if a person misses 3, 4, or 5 consecutive prayers, and he knows that the first one is a day prayer, he has to pray 5 prayers in this case, beginning with Zuhr. If someone did not pray Zuhr and Asr of present day, and Maghrib has not yet arrived, Zuhr must come before Asr. If you do Asr before Zuhr, and you remember you did not pray Zuhr as of yet, the Asr prayer is invalid. If you are praying Asr and remember during it you did not pray Zuhr, Asr will become invalid. So this is important to show you, if you're still within the time and you remember that you missed the previous one, and it's still within the time for that, you should, that prayer that you're doing, and it becomes invalid. You should go back and do the Dhuhr prayer in that case. So this is showing you how important it is to do your prayers consecutively. If you remember you did not pray Zuhr after finishing Asr, Asr will be accepted and valid, and you have to make the Zuhr. If the time is still existing and the sun has not yet set, you are ordered to make the Asr again in order to put your prayers in order. So in this case, if you didn't do Zuhr and you're praying Asr, and you don't remember until Asr, you've completed Asr, all right? If the time is still existing, which means you're still within the time of before Maghrib has come in or before the sun has touched the horizon, the sun has not yet set, you are ordered to make Asr again and to put your prayers in their order. So this is showing you the importance of keeping your prayers in order. Maghrib and Isha are the same as Zuhr and Asr, meaning that they share times. If you pray Zuhr and Asr after sunset, you have to put them in order when you make them up. If you do not, the prayer will be valid, but you will be punished in making them up after the sun has set. So if you pray Zuhr and Asr after sunset, you have to put them in order, meaning Zuhr before Asr. If you don't pray them that way, the prayer will be valid, but you will be punished. I think we have a question from Nia.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. This is Ishaq. There's a question from YouTube. The questioner says, I've heard that it is not allowed to make any individual prayer in a masjid when a congregational prayer is going on. For example, making Dhuhr while the congregation is making Asr. Is this correct?
Yes, the preference is to make it with the congregation. However, if you owe a missed prayer in this case, and you're in the masjid and they're praying, and you feel you have time to catch that prayer before they complete it, you should go off to the side, make up what you missed, and then join the congregation and complete it with the congregation. If you're in a situation where you don't think that you're going to be able to complete the whole prayer, you could join the congregation having missed the previous prayer. But in this case, let's say if you miss Zuhr and you're in Asr, you could join with the intention of making that as if it's a nafil prayer. And when the prayer is complete, you make the Dhuhr and the Asr up. You make them both up. So the importance of doing prayers consecutively and making up missed prayers are both involved with this situation. However, since you're in a masjid and you don't want to create some type of fitna with disunity or not following the imam, you have that dispensation of joining the congregation. However, when it's complete, you should make those prayers up. Bismillah. Any other questions at this point?
Yes, there was a previous question. It said that you mentioned 4 things that are not valid reasons for missing salat. Can you review those?
Okay, give me 1 second. Just want to make sure I get them correct. Okay, for postponing prayers. I'll read the whole section, and that'll cover both. If you postpone the prayers because of insanity, because of the blood during the childbirth or menses, coma, infidelity, meaning you're not Muslim, and this remains with you until the end of the proper time of the prayer, you are not responsible for these prayers. You are not responsible for those. For insanity, bleeding, unconsciousness, or infidelity, you're not responsible for making up those. However, the 4 that were not excuses, and you are still responsible for them, will be sleeping, just forgetting in general, laziness, not doing the prayer purposely, or making mistakes during the prayer. So having made invalidating a prayer. Those prayers you have to make up. So the 4 would be sleeping, forgetting, laziness, or having made mistakes that invalidated the prayer. So in those situations, you would have to make up those prayers. That's what Dr. Suleiman Jr. called false excuses. And you are ordered to make those prayers up. Any other questions at this time? Alhamdulillah, going once, going twice.
Yes, there's another question from YouTube. He says, the sister says, if a person was sick for a week, how does the person make up a week's worth of prayer?
Making up prayers, they talk about the cutoff point. Some people saying 5 or more. If you miss 5 or more prayers, you make them up the best you can. It's preferable that you make up the prayers consecutively. However, while you're making up missed prayers, new prayers are coming in. So there is a system that's involved. If you owe a lot of prayers, you make them up as best you can when you can. One of the systems that you could be involved with is, of course, if you're able to calculate how many you've missed, you should. So if you owe, let's say, 5, 6, 7 sub prayers, every time sub comes in, you make up the sub prayers that you owe and you keep track of them. And when Dhuhr comes in, you make up the Zuhr prayers that you owe. And then when Asr comes in, you make up the Asr prayers that you owe. This is just a system to help you keep track of what you owed and what you made up. That's just one option. Of course, the overall thing is to make them up as soon as possible, not delay if you can. However, if it's such a weighty matter that you're having trouble catching up in prayers and new prayers are coming in, you do have that option of making them up in a systemized way of collecting all the similar prayers to what came in and praying them at that time. I hope that answered your question. That's one of the recommendations Sheikh Amin has gave us in terms of making up a lot of missed prayers. Anything else? Bismillah. All right, so we're gonna, it's about,
I have a question.
oh, was that Frank?
Yes.
Go ahead, Frank.
Thank you. I was told during Ramadan that I have to make a niyyah for my fasting. And does the niyyah have to be made the night before? Or can it be made the next morning before soup?
Alhamdulillah, niyyah is extremely, extremely important for everything that we do. Your reward is based upon your niyyah. So for everything you do in life, inshallah, you should make a good intention for it, inshallah. And also, you might find that by making a niyyah before you do things will prevent you from falling into error in certain things. So some things that you might be doing in terms of sinfulness in other areas, by having that regular practice of making a niyyah before you do things, might be enough to prevent you from falling into error. However, in this case of the month of Ramadan, the Malikis say that you should do the niyyah at the beginning of the month, and you could do the niyyah for the entire month, and that would cover the month of Ramadan. There's another position that you should do it every day. Both are valid. You can do both. You can make the niyyah at the beginning of the month of Ramadan to intend to fast for the entire month of Ramadan. This will cover all bases. Or you could do it or do it on a daily basis. If you're doing it on a daily basis, you would do it before the sub prayer comes in, after you make the sahur. So you have the strong sunnah of taking a quick meal before you pray the sub prayer, to start you off and give you some strength to make it through the day. And it's an excellent sunnah. So after you take your sahur, you can make the intention to pray that day during the month of Ramadan. So there's two positions again on the intention. One is to make the intention for the entire month, and the other one would be to, and you would make that intention once you know that the month of Ramadan had begun. And the other one is to do it on a daily basis after the suhoor prayer, before the sub prayer. And even if you didn't make it, before sub, you could make it after sub also. Having made the sub prayer, you can make it after sub if you have, that way also. That's another option.
Shukran.
Fun. Alhamdulillah. So we're gonna close the class for today. We're gonna ask that everybody continues to pray for Sheikh Amin, and I pray that everybody is able to see the month of Ramadan, and that Allah Ta'ala blesses us with a blessed and acceptable month of Ramadan. And may Allah increase us in Iman and in Taqwa and in Ihsan and class of and forgive our sins, our major sins, our minor sins, our former sins, and our future sins. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد الفاتح لما أغلق وخاتم لما سبق نصر الحق بالحق والهادي إلى صراطك المستقيم وعلى آله حق قدره ومقداره العظيم. ولا إنا الإنسان في خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. آمين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Thank you for joining, and Allah bless and protect everyone. Amin. So.
Amin.